are we using an experienced researcher's experience in doing this refinement process? Is it more like an experience-based process? Because like a young emerging researcher, do they only have to work with an experienced researcher to do it? So, or are there any other trade? Are there anything else that a young researcher student has to develop so that they can become good at this refinement? Keeping the AI tool aside for the first question, yeah.
Why AI can augment it now is LLM has also now read a lot of research. LLM has been trained on a lot of research. It has been trained on a lot of papers, which means it has also read a lot of research. That is why now it can kind of augment your supervisor.
So it's sharp 8 p.m. Shall we actually start, sir and madam?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So teaching a lesson of punctuality actually to the audience. So okay, everybody, welcome again to the 5th research talk, Research in the AI Era, organized by the Artificial Intelligence Forum for Students at the University of Peradeniya. So today, in our 5th session, we are going to discuss about how to convert an idea to a profound research question. How to convert an idea to a research question. So as usual, our host resource panelist today is Professor Roshan from the Department of Computer Engineering, University of Peradeniya. And also he's the consultant CEO of the Lanka Research and Education Network. And we are excited to host today our guest speaker, Dr. Damayanthi. She holds a PhD in engineering from the University of Melbourne, Australia. She's also currently the director of the Engineering Education Unit of the University of Peradeniya, while serving as a senior lecturer in computer engineering at the Department of Computer Engineering, University of Peradeniya. So some of you might find this as a continuation of the discussion so far. But if you are joining as a new participant today, you are also welcome because you can consider this as a fresh start. Without further ado, let me hand over the microphone to Professor Roshan to actually start the discussion converting ideas to research questions. Sir and Madam, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kapila, and good evening, everyone. Hi, Damayanthi, good evening.
Good evening.
So, like Kapila mentioned, this is a series that we are running. The idea I keep on emphasizing is that we have been doing research and we'll continue do research, and hopefully, and this series is exploring while we are doing research how AI can come in and support, right? So the series go in a thread of the research process and in the age of AI. It's all AI era. So that's the idea. So we have had a few sessions already. This is in fact the 5th session in our series. The last 4 sessions we have been talking about how to come up with or identify meaningful research problems. We had discussed how we can do literature review, what literature review means and how we can do it. And then we also have identified or discussed about things like how we can collect and curate data sets or collect data and curate data sets, which is one of the important aspects of research. So in all these discussions, what we have in fact done is we have looked at how to do this research step, and then we also have seen how AI in this present time and age can come and help, and also how it's disturbing or the process, and how we can help, how we can use it, and so on. So that's what we have been doing so far, and in that line today we are going to discuss, like Kapil already mentioned, how we can convert a research idea. In fact, we had discussed about how we can identify research ideas earlier, So today is to see how we can convert a research idea into proper research question, right? So in fact, so that therefore there's a lot of overlap between the previous sessions and this. However, this is specifically about research questions, right? So normally what we see in a research process is this is a place where generally the students starting the early career researchers struggle to find the right research question or the research questions for that matter, right? So we should also, if you want to just reflect on it, a research topic and research questions are obviously not the same thing. Even the problem and the questions themselves are not the same thing. So these are places where we want to see how we can generally do it, and generally basically do it meaning find proper research questions. But then at the same time with AI, has it become difficult or has it become easier? In fact, the answer is yes for both. There are situations where it has become easier for researchers to find proper research question. At the same time, it also has become difficult. So today we are going to explore that area. So to start the discussion, what I wanted to start it from this area, right? So Damayanthi, what we are actually planning on doing is we'll take this whole discussion into two parts. First, we'll just discuss about how a research problem or a theme topic is formed into a research question. How is it refined into a research question, and what research question means, the features in it, and so on. And then we'll go into AI, and can we use AI to refine it, or will AI refinement make this better, easier, or difficult, challenging? Those are the things we are going to discuss, right? So let me just start with the first question from Damayanthi. When students come up with, say, research topic and broad ideas, and then they come and say, okay, this is what I want to work on. What are the things that are usually missing at that stage? Like when they say, okay, they have the research topic, and then they say, okay, this is what I want to work on. What do they miss?
Yes. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to join this podcast by AIFS. And as I mentioned when I was given this invitation, this can be a good opportunity for a discussion about AI and humans, as well as maybe a demonstration of where AI can be a good replacement maybe for humans, where human can be very fatigued and will be very difficult for human to answer the questions as well. Okay, so we'll see how it goes. To answer your question, what students can be missing, rather I think what they are having at the moment when they are coming to us is actually what they have in mind is mainly they have some interest in mind. That is what they start with. Let's put it like that way. They have some idea in mind, they have some interest in mind, something they have learned at class, some subjects, some interests that they have so far. I have gone through what has been discussed in the AIFS sessions so far as well, and I have based on that, I think what we have learned, what we have discussed so far is identifying research scope, or what we can say identifying research gap. So what the student would have seen is a research gap. So you would see that, okay, people are using, for example, people are using statistical methods for this, people are using machine learning methods for this. That's all. So in that sense, that idea would be vague. So that would not be focused. So if I would be to I understand some characteristics, so that would be vague, not that focused. So if I asked, okay, how long it would take to solve that problem, maybe they would not have a direct answer. There will not be a direct timeline defined. So can you manage it Is it manageable? There'll be no direct answer. Is it solvable? There'll be no direct answer. So that will be the difference between a research gap and a research problem. So when you're going from research gap to a research problem, I think that is the difference. So in the very first session, when you looked at doing a literature review, you are identifying a research gap. You go through multiple papers, you are doing a literature review, you identify a research gap by looking at different papers. People have looked at these different ideas, and you identify in this field there is a gap like this. But that doesn't really give you a problem to work on, right? Now then, if you are an undergraduate student, you have 2 semesters to work on a problem on your project. If you are a master student, again, a certain amount of weeks or months to work on your thesis. A PhD student, 3 years to work on your thesis. Now then, you have to find a question or 2 or 3 questions to work on from that gap, so that you have to now convert that gap into 1 or 3 questions. So now, so that you have to convert from that gap, from that vague gap, now you have to convert that into something focused, something that can be solved within that timeline, something that you can manage. And also, there are some other characteristics that is expected through research. That is, it should be novel, right? It should be a novel idea, and it should be relevant. And when a student coming to us, I think what they would have in mind would be, they would have an idea in mind, some interest in mind, but what is lacking would be maybe the focus, and the relevancy maybe. So which we as supervisors try to help bring them into the context and give them the relevancy into the field, and also help them to manage, so that help them to make it a manageable research question, and also make them into a research question that they can achieve within a given timeline that they are supposed to achieve. You can ask a question. So, yeah.
In fact, I was going to also ask you what you have answered 2 questions. One is what they don't have, and also what they should have, right? So, can you like just to summarize? I think what you're talking about is to move from like a broader gap. So from the topic theme, like sort of a gap, to identifying. You also use the word like researchable, right? So researchable. Researchable something, or researchable the research question is something that we have to, we should be able to research, right? So that's where you brought in things like scope and timeline and all that together, and so on. So when it comes to research questions or strong research questions, should we always narrow it? Should it be narrow, or can it be open-ended? Because I remember like reading long time back things that the research questions that we are solving these days are becoming more and more narrower. This was some time back, right? So I don't know whether it's still true, about 20 years ago. Narrower compared to earlier days, where we had more open questions, and we were not focusing on solving them fast and maybe writing a paper and so on. So what's your take on, should a research question always be narrow?
Yeah, I thinking on that question, pondering on that question based on my experience. I think at the moment we are thinking research as a in two terms. One, as a training, as well as as a like a profession, or a thing that we do day to day right? Like something that you do as an academic or a researcher as your profession. So, as well as that, what we would like our undergraduate student to do as a training, right? So, I think when it comes to as a training, they are bound to do that training within a particular timeline. So, in that sense, I think now we are giving them. Therefore, we see that we are giving them a narrow scope. I think that is why, if you look at the history, what you're saying is correct. If we look at the history, at least 5 decades, 7 decades back, we don't see such a lot of publications coming up like that. We spend long time studying something, right? And but now we see a lot of publications coming out, and our scopes are very narrow, right? But I think one reason could be this, that we are looking at in research as in two aspects. One is can be, at least my experience, my take on that is, one is it's given as now as a training for maybe in like a graduate training. There are a lot of postgraduate training going on, and also as a profession where we practice it as like a daily thing, if that
Just to
makes sense.
clarify, so do you mean to say in training it's more limited and in profession it can be open, or in profession also it has to be limited because it's also tied to other things in life, is it?
It doesn't really mean it's limited, but it's not limited. It can be limited by maybe the the limited by what is expected, by what is expected from you, right?
Yeah, more like your KPI, your
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
promotions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see. That is what I wanted to know. So what, in both cases you are giving it as examples for why we had to narrow it and finish and start and finish and so on, right? So I that is what, yeah. Um, so how do we know? Because you also mentioned the questions has to be specific, researchable, had all those aspects, right? So one was like scope, that is where narrowing is coming in. How do you know it's specific enough? Can you give an example like a research question that is not specific, or somebody who is coming and telling you, okay, you want to do a research, and what they're saying is not specific, but how do you, and another one where it's more specific, like it's a proper research question.
Um, I think um, 80% of identifying a research question goes to the literature review, right? And yeah, that is why most of the hard work happens, and
Yeah.
also the 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 peer review or the feedback with your peers, maybe the supervisor, your peer team. So in terms of the, like, how do you define your scope, is that like the boundary, right? What you mean by the scope is actually your boundary that you are working on, right? So for example, let's say I'm working on medical imaging problem, working on a medical imaging problem, and so I would like to work on a medical imaging problem, right? Always, I would like to work on the medical imaging problem, and let's say I'm an engineering student, and I would not like to work on like a biological, well, like a lot of experimental problem on my undergraduate project sometimes, because what because I might not have a lot of time to spend on in my undergraduate thesis to run a lot of experiments at a wet lab. So sometimes, so likewise, it depends, but I think one way to identify that, the most of the way to identify the boundary would be to do the 80% of that would coming from the literature review. Yeah, to look at the related work and see uh, what sort of work they have done, right? And that will define your boundary. You will see your boundary through the related work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's more about looking at how others have done it and where they have identified problems, and then okay, so in this area, where I would stop, right? Where I would put myself into or my research topic into. So you
Yeah,
also,
so because you ask about an example, for example, if I'm working on medical imaging problem, I would not go to evaluate my methods on other sort of data, imaging data. I would stick to my work on medical imaging data. So, but because otherwise I would end up evaluating on other sort of imaging data, and the review would come and say, okay, your scope and you are talking about medical imaging, but you are evaluating on something totally different. You are talking about two different things. You are doing two different things, right? So likewise.
yeah, so then we know it's not specific enough. Yeah, true. Got it. Next. Yeah. So you also talking about like different type of uh, students, and then you mentioned like, okay, undergraduate have this. In fact, like you somewhere in your previous answer, I got it like, okay, undergraduates will solve one research question and master students will solve two and PhD students will solve three. Is it true? Is it how it works? Or do we have the research questions themselves? Or is it just a number of research questions that at different levels we solve, or the question themselves, are they of different levels or difficulty, or the depth, or are there differences in, we are trying to get more understanding about the question itself, right? What research questions are. Should they be just a number of more questions for when you go higher, when you want to do PhD compared to a bachelor's degree? Or is it also more depth,
Yeah,
something else?
it's definitely the depth. It's definitely not the number. It's definitely the depth that you are going into because or you can say how much you are suffering in the field, right? Or like how much expertise that you are gaining in that field. That's what it means. So like in a way, I was just kidding, but what it means is how much that depth that you're covering in that particular field. That's what it means. So it's definitely the depth, how much you are covering, how much depth that you're covering in that particular field or the topic. Yes.
So can we also think the deep you go, the most time you have to spend to solve those, or
Uh,
the research questions, or more time it takes to even come up with the proper research questions, the deep you go? Is it true?
uh, no, what it means is uh, it's not about the time. It's about the how much you understand the problem. That's all it's about. It's nothing about how much you have spent time reading about it, solving about it. It's all about how much you understand the problem. That's it's all about, right? At the end of the day, it says this the amount you understand the problem. So or how into how much depth you have studied that problem. So yeah, I think that's what it reflects, your expertise on that particular problem, on that particular topic.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. So in fact, like we already discussed a little on how to scope a problem. You highlighted it a bit earlier as well. So the focus, if you want to come up with like a process, a step-by-step approach on narrowing or refining a problem into something that is proper, what are the steps you would typically follow, or you would suggest someone to follow? Why I'm asking this question is also I wanted to see then later, can we also use AI tools and AI systems and this generative AI? We are just moving towards there. So that now first if we can come up with some sort of a step a stepwise process, and then we can also see how AI can be used there. So can you elaborate a bit on narrowing and refining a problem, how we can do it without AI first, and then we'll go into AI as we discuss.
Yeah, I think I think I will answer twofold. There was one reason why I mentioned about this training and also the research as a profession idea as well. Talking about the process of narrowing down the scope, I think in the traditional way, how it happens is we all know usually how it happens is usually the researchers, academics, or we term them as supervisors, usually would post topics or the research ideas that they are interested in or usually are usually working on. So one thing we can do is we can look up their profiles and search for them and go through their profiles and see what they're working on, or by maybe if you are interested on maybe working with some of them or working with their groups, usually, or we can get some understanding about what sort of scope that you would like to work on. So that could be one starting point. You can work on the similar scope, right? If there's a particular group, particular or what happens in undergraduate cases, you are attached to a certain department, so it's that department projects that you'll be working on that will define your scope. Or there are certain different staff members, so you will go and talk to them, and or you can see their interest and or maybe the papers that they have published and get some understanding, and define that as your scope. Or based on what they have published so far, you can get some idea about the scope. And the other thing is, if you have your, or else if you have your own interest, maybe you are passionate about something that you have read, or you have, you have your own interest, or you are passionate about some particular domain or some particular idea, you can start reading about it. I think we know the traditional way is there are not like really traditional, but we have tools like Google Scholar and these methods we search for. We do literature review through using tools like Google Scholar, download papers and go through them and do a literature review to refine your scope and to understand research gap and define research questions. And then we can further refine the scope by having a discussion. Go and meet the staff members, having a discussion with them and refine the scope. And they would say, okay, this is too much, this is too broad. And that discussion will happen multiple times. They will say, okay, this is too broad, go and refine it. And then you will, you will rewrite it and then go back and say, okay, this is what I came up with. Is it good? They will say, okay, this is not good. This doesn't, okay, here you have done a mistake. Can you refine it? Do it again, go back and forth. Can you do some literature review? Can you do some literature review only on this part? Right? You go back and do some more reading on some papers and go back again, likewise, and then you refine. Maybe take a substantial amount of time to develop a good proposal, come up with good research questions, and identify this is what I'm going to work on in a traditional setup. And now, because we have AI tools, I think we can do this. We can kind of augment or do the same thing with AI tools as well, kind of mimic the same thing with AI tools as well. We can augment the same thing with AI tools as well. And when I said, if you consider it as like a training, you can kind of augment the supervisor's role with an AI tool, where you can use an AI tool to do that practice for the feedback. Instead of getting that feedback for the supervisor's role, you can get the assistance or the help from an AI tool. And of course, you instead of tools like Google Scholar, now there are more powerful tools we can use for literature review, and very far we can do it faster, like connected papers, connected papers, and these Litmaps. There's also I think Litmaps didn't come up in previous podcast, I think. So Litmaps is also a similar tool, but as I learned, it's a proprietary tool. But the what is handy with Litmaps is it allows you to build your own map. So you can build your categorize with connected papers. You can build a map of papers, but at the same time with lit maps you can tag these papers. So these papers, like you can say, okay, this belongs to some these papers, because I am from computer engineering, I'll use some terms from that. You can say, so these are from deep learning, so these are from classical machine learning. Likewise, you can use tags, and then you can give some colors. Maybe I can show, or
Yeah, why
should I
not?
show later? Shall I
Oh,
show now?
oh, yeah, good. Show
Yeah,
now.
okay.
How it
So,
good.
Yeah, sharing is enabled, madam. You can show it now.
okay, so I'll show it now. Give me a second. Yeah, I'll quickly show the tool only. So, yeah. So here you can see my screen, right? So this is Litmaps, and if you go to features, it's almost similar to connected papers, but the idea is, so it build a similar map, but like here you can categorize, use tags.
Mm.
Nice tag. You can categorize these papers using tags. These different papers, what these papers belongs to, and then nice visualizations of the same map, like a better visualization, and some more features, additional features to connected papers. Right. So we have connected papers, lit maps, likewise, which we can use to do literature review and do identify research gaps, right? And then, what we are talking about, how we can do, like, identify the scope, right? And I was saying in the traditional method, so we were using Google Scholar, but now we have all these AI tools to do that. And after doing that, we will have to do further refining. We will have to do further refining to identify research questions. So there are, of course, we can use AI assistance, but there is always a but. But before going to but, maybe we can see how we can use AI tools for this. For example, Consensus also has some assistance to do. Let me, yeah. Consensus has been already introduced in this
But that's
podcast
okay. I mean, if you want to show
before.
perspective,
Yeah.
that's
So I will, but anyway, introduce. So consensus, as we know, is again something that we can use to ask questions. and it will give us research papers backed answers, right? And it will give us what are the answers, but it will also give us what are the papers, relevant research papers as well. And so I can ask a question like, this is, I'm going to keep as the topic for today's demonstrations. Let's say this is something I am interested in working on. Now, as you can see, let's say I'm a student and I am interested in machine learning, and even I don't know about biomarkers, but machine learning for Alzheimer's disease, because I'm someone who is interested about uh, uh, working on working with medicine and medicine related problem, and interested about working with machine learning methods. Here is there is an option of deep in consensus, and if I select that option, um, now what I have put in here is, even actually it's quite vague, but I think if you once you have used something like connected papers, you would have a better text to put in here. Uh, so at the end of this analysis, it will also give you a matrix. It should give you a matrix showing Yeah, I think my text was too big, so it's taking a bit of time. But so at the end of it, it will give you a matrix. So it will give you a matrix is extracting a couple of characteristics. We used to do in a literature review. What we usually do is we extract we identify some characteristics between the papers or studies that we have identified, and we develop a summary. We identify key papers or key studies under a given topic, and we would identify some common characteristics, and we would develop a table, and then identify a table or a matrix. So this will, at the end of it, this will generate that table. So then it's easy for us to compare between all the studies, the key studies under this topic. Something I forgot to mention, in the traditional way of doing identifying the scope is a key method is to read review papers. That is the other method that we usually do is to read review papers. So it doesn't change even when we are reading. I think when we are using AI augmented tools, I think our focus would be on review papers. It doesn't change. Still, we will focus on review papers. I think I am going go back and forth, but we can use a tool like NotebookLM to, or we can use any other chatbot to, do Q&A. But we can do Q&A with a lot of review papers to understand review papers. But we will use a lot of that with review papers to understand this domain, understand about the scope, and coming up with research questions.
Yeah, in fact, during the
Yeah, this is what I was talking about.
so the metric, yeah. Can you explain? Do you want to explain it a bit, or is it?
Yes, so I gave just a vague idea saying machine learning and Alzheimer's disease, and what it is coming up with is research gaps metric. So it's saying it's identifying some characteristics based on, so these are the characteristics that it has selected: diagnosis accuracy, stage classification, these some characteristics. And based on the papers that it has selected, so these different papers, so it says, okay, there are 38 papers that has investigated on it, but there is a gap in here, right? Likewise, and also identifying some research questions, suggesting some research questions, potential research questions that can be potential research questions, and also giving some uh, uh, justifications why that can be research questions. We will, I hope we'll be talking about responsible AI, so I'll keep it to later, but this can be a starting point. This can be a starting point. So there are AI tools that can give you a kickstart to coming up with from research gap to a research question, at least to help you to do a kickstart.
You have said a lot of things. I have a lot of questions, but let, let me ask one by one. So first thing you are talking about is something, so when you are transferring from a research, like this refinement we are talking about, where you start from a theme or a gap from actually a topic, theme, topic, then gap, and from there to research question. In this process, you also said generally how it is done is with you talking to your mentor, supervisor, research colleague, something of that nature. Does it mean that usually it's done based on experience? Or why I'm asking that question is that because then you said, okay, so instead of using the research, your supervisor, you can now use AI, right? So, I mean, I'm just like, I know I'm like cutting a lot of corners to say this, but yeah, so you started first by saying, okay, so if you wanted to do this process, you talk to people, like you talk to your mentor, you talk to your supervisor. Then okay, maybe you can't talk to your supervisor always, you can talk to AI, right? So the first question with this summarized cutting corner description of what you said, my first question is, generally in refining a gap into a set of research questions, so let's say one research question, are we mostly using the experienced researchers' experience in doing it, or are there any other trade?
Can you say it again? Sorry, the very
Or
last part.
are we using an experienced researcher's experience in doing this refinement process? Is it more like an experience-based process? Because like a young emerging researcher, do they only have to work with an experienced researcher to do it? So, or are there any other trade? Are there anything else that a young researcher student has to develop so that they can become good at this refinement? Keeping the AI tool aside for the first question, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think again, based on my experience so far, your supervisors, so our supervisors have made a lot of errors, which have made them experts in the field. They have made a lot of errors. They have made a lot of errors, which have made them experts in the field. That's what I think.
Okay. I think
And the term that is used in, I think, education for this is, we call it as, it's deliberate practice. You can call it as deliberate practice. So you make errors and you get feedback for that, and you do it time and 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 time, and you become an expert in what you are doing. And I think there are a lot of theories around it, but that is how you become an expert on something. Right? And yeah. So, but because when it comes to research, and when you told me not to bring AI into it, but I can if you'd like me
that's okay.
to.
Come on. It's okay.
Yeah, because it can be, because one thing is by being one thing can be your supervisor has read a lot of research. Why AI can augment it now is LLM has also now read a lot of research. LLM has been trained on a lot of research. It has been trained on a lot of uh, papers, which means it has also read a lot of research. That is why now it can kind of augment your supervisor, right? That's what I meant. So your supervisor has read a lot of papers. So the AI tool has also been trained on a lot of papers, right? In a way, so therefore it can augment in a way your supervisor. However, uh, the AI tool has not made errors as much as your supervisor has made errors on the real use cases in real contexts, some of the context, right? So this is where that some cases where AI can miss. So that is where so the human is still useful.
It's interesting that you are saying that humor is still useful.
Yeah.
I hope, yeah. Right. So, something related. You in fact used consensus to generate, generate research gap and the research gap matrix and so on, and also research questions. So these research questions are they correct? Are they right? Are they good? Are they weak, shallow? How do we know? And what are the situations where these AI tools like consensus, for example? Or maybe we can start from some other AI tool, like general AI tools, not specifically like consensus, which is research focused and it's looking at research papers, like you said. So different type of research, different type of AI tools, and can they mislead? Can they do like produce wrong type of, or shallow or weak, not proper research questions? Can you explain a bit in a variety of AI tools? Because you also mentioned about different type of tools, different names you mentioned, NotebookLM, Consensus. You also mentioned that Litmaps and different tools, connected papers and whatnot. So these different tools, how good are they and can they mislead? Can they have weak or shallow questions? And how can we really identify them? And if yes, how?
My I think my straight answer to that question would be yes, they can. And when you say AI tools, there are different AI methods that are being used across these different tools. Like connected papers, they are using, I think, graph-based methods. Research Rabbits, the different methods. ChatGPT, they are using different methods. They are not using graph methods. They are using large language models. And likewise, so something like connected papers would be very reliable, I would say, because it's not really yeah. I would think it's very reliable because it's not really putting depending on the underlying methods that it's using. And we are not using it to actually generate research questions. The function of connected papers, it's not to generate research questions. We are using it to understand the connection between papers. Same for Research Rabbit and Litmaps. But when it comes to something like ChatGPT and it's in general mode, it's some how it is being used is it's a it's for natural language task. It's something built for natural language task based on something. It's based on a large language model on a large corpus, like a large data set of text coming from different sources. So that sources is not only research data, research text, it can be different types of text. It can be Reddit data, it can be blog post on different, like coming from various type of sources if you are using only the general mode, right? So in that case, and if you are not using any particular setting, it can just generate some vague answers. And yeah, and definitely it can actually it will definitely generate some vague answers. So that is the risk of it. So the research question cannot be vague. That is the very first characteristic. We said it has to be focused. So that is what we said. So the research question has to be focused, and that is what we see missing as well when a student coming to us, that they are coming with vague sentences, vague sentences as research questions. So, but if you want something focused, you will have to make these AI tools to come up with something focused. So then you will have to learn how do you make themselves come up with something focused. So then you will have to look through what are the settings that can make them come up with something focused. Like I used how these like consensus deep mode, where I can come up with like not in the general mode, the deep mode where it can give me something extra than in the general mode. Same in we talk a lot about prompt engineering. I think in this podcast also there will be different separate session on that prompting. And also a tool like NotebookLM where we can give our own sources, and without we can ground uh, the tool to base on our sources rather than what it has been trained on to generate the answers without using something that is been generally trained on. So there are some techniques that we can use from being vague to go to being more focused.
Right. So in fact, okay, so you are talking about some tools like connected papers where it's very specific and and also it's not generating things like research questions. What it is doing is to connect. And such things, it's like more, you have put them as the sort of the more reliable or highly reliable sort of tools. From there to the other extreme are tools like very generic ChatGPT in a general mode, you call it, right? So general tool where it has access to anything and everything, and therefore it can be very shallow on specific topic, research questions, and so on. And then there are tools that are in between. You took examples like consensus with deep research or search mode, where it can do better research with evidence and list down things like the gaps and the number of research papers that it has seen and so on. So it's more evidence based, and I hope that also answers my question about whether whether how do we know that these are right? So whether they are weak or whether they are shallow or whether they are proper research questions. I believe the answer now what you are given is it is by using the right tool, and then also uh, uh, being human, useful, checking them and making sure that they are right. So
Yeah,
that
I think we can measure it by looking at the outcome, whether it's like whether what you're getting is focused, that is what, at the end of the day, we will be looking at, whether it's focused, whether it's measurable, whether it's novel, whether it's relevant, whether what the characteristics that we mentioned about. Right? And again, as I said, you can again maybe review it get the feedback, review it also. But of course, you will have to review it, get it peer reviewed with a supervisor as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's yeah. Obviously, that has to be part of the process, and so generally, but one of the other concerns usually we have, and I think it applies to research questions as well, which is AI can make, or generative AI specifically. I think even things like consensus, what you are showing is also part of the generative AI, although it has the more grounding research back to it. They can make things sound impressive, make things sounds impressive,
Yeah.
right? So when things sounds impressive, but sometimes it's not like really worth or researchable in our context. Like, so how do we overcome? Do we have any ways in which we can overcome uh, uh, research questions that are generated? Let's say they are more impressive but less researchable, or less less researchable actually. So how do we improve it? Is it just by do we have do you have any specific tips in which you can improve such impressive to researchable research questions?
Oh, yeah, I think one thing the only thing you can do is always play the devil's advocate,
Okay.
be the
But
devil's advocate.
with with the with,
And
with the AI, right?
say it again.
With the AI, with the AI, with the tool.
Yeah. As you're working with it, yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
And uh, so if I can very quickly share my screen, something going in that direction, I hope. Uh, So this is not exactly was not something I used to use in another session. So as we are in after around 3 years after this Gen AI era now, so we are talking about from surrender to offloading to now having an agency over AI. So when you are surrendering to AI is where you accept AI summarized search results, something like you accept whatever AI is giving. For example, so even in this particular case, you are trying to identify research questions. So you can ask as it is, accept what AI is giving you, accept what AI generated research questions as it is. Offloading is again something similar. You don't think about it as when you are given a task, you just give it to do AI to do it. But agency is asking AI to be a, a provocative or like you can ask using AI to provide viewpoints, not encode data. So in this case, I maybe I can demonstrate an example as well. For example, in this particular case, you can use a tool like NotebookLM and ask it to upload a set of research papers that you are interested in, that you have used in your literature review, and ask it to identify what are the what are the cases that are missing in this set of papers. Likewise, not just summarize them, and asking AI to identify unknown unknowns or using so things like that. Rather, always just giving it a task without giving it a task, always, using it to play the devil's advocate, sort of. Maybe you can explain it further, sir. Maybe. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I hope you get me. Yes.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
Hmm.
So, do you want to show some, you said you want to show some example now?
Yeah, I'll show them an example. So here, as I said,
Still not shared.
so I was using that Alzheimer's example.
Okay, now good.
You can see my screen now?
Yeah, now coming, yes.
Yeah, so I was interested in that particular problem I was saying. Now let's say I have downloaded a couple of papers, research papers, after going through connected papers and all. Now I can ask a question like, of course, you can refine this prompt, but you can say, go through the sources and identify that considered. Or you can say that compare and contrast between these methods, things like that. No, you can use these tools in that mode. So it will, I hope the audience know a tool like NotebookLM. The advantage is that the answers will be grounded on the sources that I have uploaded. And now I can ask questions like, I can make it, because I can ask the question such that, to criticize between the sources. Like I can, like, rather than, just to task like summarize or asking questions, things like that. This also a tool method like mind map can be useful in coming up with coming up with research questions, but it's not quite relevant to what you ask, but what we are discussing today.
That's okay if you can show that it might be useful.
Yeah, so I have so what I'm demonstrating here is something like I have gone through a tool like Connected Papers or Research Rapid, identified some papers that are relevant to what I'm interested in, my research gap, and then I want to see the connections between these papers. I'm not the what is discussed. So I can use a tool in NotebookLM. I can easily generate a mind map between. I can generate a mind map. Uh, another another thing that we can do when we are using these AI tools is, in fact, we can move between these tools. For example, a tool like NotebookLM, it's good for for analytical tasks to analyze these papers, but it might not generate a very visually appealing mind map. But if you want to show this mind map to someone, maybe for a discussion or for a presentation, then you would consider, uploading that into tool like Gemini or ChatGPT and improve that mind map. Yeah, something that you would find useful. So you can go back and forth between tools also, that is, as you are working with these tools. And the other thing is, if you, as we are on it, a tool like Google AI Studio can be useful as well when you are trying to understand, when we are Google AI Studio, when we are, okay. Maybe if you can allow, I'll just talk for some time and then tell some ideas how we can come up with research questions. Give
Yeah,
some, is that okay?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, some other ways to use AI tools in this exercise would be, okay, now so far what we mainly looked at is like through reading papers and going through ideas in papers how to come up with research questions. But another thing we usually or I usually try to do with students is actually, I think usually you also do, is actually recreate an idea in one of these key papers. That is a neat way to come up with research question. So what we do is we pick a key paper, a key publication that we are interested in, that we have come up, that have shown some interesting idea, some impressive results, and we try to recreate those results. So we can, what we do is in our domain, what we usually do is we go to that paper, we download their data sets, we download their code base, and we we try to rerun that code base and see whether we can recreate that results and whether we can have the same results. And we start from there so that we can have a very good hands-on on the problem and see, we can hands-on the problem and see exactly what are the limitations with the problem and understand hands-on what the problem is about, right? And come up with the idea on a problem at hand and come up with a question. So as we try to do that and we are reading with papers, so something like Google AI Studio can come in handy. So Google AI Studio is a couple of things at one place. So Google AI Studio has Gemini, the usual chatbot, and also uh, uh, also sorry, what do you call the App Studio, as well as a lot of tools in one place. And if you go to Playground, it shows what are the different things it has in place. And so if I go to models, one thing I want to show, so in code and chat, you have the usual chat, and then image generation, video generation, usual things. But one thing I wanted to show is this real-time chat, where you can actually do real-time chat with using with Gemini. You can do real-time chat. And as you do, where it can be useful is, let's say you are reading a paper and or you are running a code and you have a problem and you don't have anyone to ask a question. So then you can use this in this mode. You can share your screen and you can get assistance from the tool to solve that problem. Especially when you are reading papers, you can have there can be equations, graphs that you have trouble understanding, and you can have assistance from the tool itself to understand papers and get assistant to refine your question, understand those sections, and then and there get clarification. So that can be very useful. So likewise, there are a lot of use cases where these AI tools can be very, very useful and can speed up this process.
Are you going to show? I thought you were going to show a demo.
Yes, let me show. I just wanted to download PDF.
Okay.
Okay, let me show. So I am in this mode, live mode, and then I can click share screen, and then I'm going to click the PDF. Let's say it's the paper that I'm reading currently, and I have some questions on that PDF, and I click share. And I go back to Google AI Studio and I ask a question. Okay. Can you see the screen I'm sharing? Okay, something went wrong. I'm trying again.
Screen is visible. Screen is visible.
No.
Oh, you want to show us a different screen? Okay.
Damayanthi is talking to AI, not to us.
Oh,
Gave up
okay.
on us.
Okay, let's shut up and wait.
I think it's fine. You can now try.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
It's not picking up. Are you talking to us?
It could be because your mic is
Can you see my
connected.
screen now? Hi, Gemini. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. I'm seeing your screen display a PDF with some graphs and technical text. What would you like to discuss about it?
What does this graph shows?
Based on the caption, it looks like these are diagrams of protein-protein interaction networks used in a simulation study. The different plots show networks of varying sizes, from 17 to 271 genes, illustrating how the connections between them can change. Is there a specific part of the diagram you're curious about?
I'm curious about knowing what is meant by this Gaussian graphical model.
A Gaussian graphical model in this context is basically a way to represent the relationships between genes. It assumes if there's a connection between two genes in the network, their activity levels are directly correlated. If there's no line, they're considered independent, at least conditionally. It helps them model how different parts of the biological system might influence each other. Does that make sense?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I hope she can hear me.
Yeah. Yeah, so likewise, yes. So I think there are a lot of tools that you can use to come from gap to a research question. But it's a matter of, again, give me a second. I'll let you talk now.
Okay.
This I think it comes to this.
Okay.
It comes to this, I think, yes. Sometime back introduced by Anthropic, called 4D Framework of AI Fluency. Yes.
Maybe you can explain a bit. We haven't talked about it.
Yes. So this came around 1.5 years back, actually. From Anthropic, they introduced this 4D framework for AI fluency. So 4D, because there are 4 words from D: delegation, description, discernment, and diligence. So delegation is to know what are the tasks that you can delegate to an AI, right? And description it's mainly about prompting, to know how to prompt well. Description, to write the description, knowing about writing the description, knowing about prompting. Discernment is knowing how to evaluate the outcome of these AI tools, evaluation of the outcomes. And it is said that discernment is it's going to be the skill of this now AI era, right? And the diligence is the building guardrails, the necessary guardrails. And that's the other thing. One thing I want to discuss in this podcast as well, just like very briefly touch on, because I think at the end of the day, out of this exercise, what you would be having is a thesis or a publication. So we will have to check what is allowed by the publisher. Are they allowing us to use AI tools to formulate research questions? Or should we work with only our supervisors, only work with humans? So that's diligence. That's what diligence talk about, building guardrails in the research process. So research questions. So I think we also need to check when it comes to research questions, are publishers allowing to use AI tools to come up with research questions? So today morning when I checked, most of the publishers do, I think, but you have to declare. You have to declare that if you do use them, you have to declare. But it's only the elsewhere that specifically talk about using about the term research problem or the research question. IEEE or the other ones, they don't really tell that. They only tell about the process but not the research question, at which point. But elsewhere say you can use even in research process, but you have to declare. Research problem, research question you can use, but you have to declare which tool have you used.
Yeah, that's an important area that we have been discussing about it everywhere else as well. But the 4D is new to the forum, but it's good that you brought it in and decide at which level and how careful we had to be. Just before we opening up to the audience for question, I just have one last question regarding the research questions. The lot of questions. What I wanted to ask you is, research question, it evolved, right? So during whatever the research is, whether it's an undergraduate research up to a PhD research or even postdoctoral research. So the research question, what you start and when you start doing the work, I assume it evolves. And first question is, does it? And the second question is, if it does, can these AI tools help that process, the refining the research question as we go? I thought earlier we discussed about research questions, refine it so that we can start a research. Now I'm talking about, okay, we started the research, it's happening, we keep on going. Will the research question evolve as we keep going into the research? If yes, can we use these tools to make that process better, easier, faster?
Yes. So the research, the both questions, the answer is yes, because research questions evolves because one characteristic of the research question is to stay relevant And because if the related work or the literature evolves, the question will evolve as well. So if the related work is evolving, your question will evolve as well. So I think not, yes, like most probably it can evolve. I would say, yeah, it can evolve. It can evolve. Let's say like that. Yes.
And the second part is obviously, I think you already have answered the second part of it, right? So, which is, can so usually when this research question evolves and when the research evolved and the literature evolved, we find it to me, like I'm just rethinking during the time of my PhD, it's always a big headache for me. I would use the word, if lack of any other words, because we are working on it, and it always will have to spend decent amount of time going back and looking at what has been happening. But I think now with the tools, even now with the better way tools, like the different ways of using tools, it's also possible to let one of your agents to do that for you to some extent, and you can spend much less time on like keeping you up to date. Because you have gone through, let's say you have gone through the process once and you have come to a search question, so which means you have a good understanding about all what's happening. And then the new things that are getting added can be quickly checked upon using these tools, isn't it? That's what I think.
Yes. Yes.
That's a very short answer, but yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think now we can open it up for some audience question. I see some raising hands from the very beginning. Maybe they were going to for a long time now. And Kapila, okay, questions are coming up.
Yes, sir. Okay, so first of all, this is not the final goodbye, but then final thank you. But thank you for both Dr. Damayanthi and Professor Ragil for like the productive discussion. And what I noticed is like we always used to say, or we had this discussion before we start this series, that usually when we have topics or talks about AI, what we usually do is we assume the audience knows what we talk about, and we only talk about how to convert everything to AI. But I think in the spirit of this entire Researching the AI Era series was actually to assume the audience as novice for AI and both for AI and research. So I think today also we could conserve that spirit. And I had to thank both the panelists for having that generality, and the things were understandable for even like an undergraduate student who's actually trying to or starting research. And yes, sir, we have two questions. But before that, I have a long question from Chanaka Bandara. He has posted, I think, 4 questions. So shall we actually take them one by one, Chanaka's questions? Or while we are taking Chanaka's questions, I had to inform the other members of the audience. Please feel free to actually raise your hand or unmute and ask your questions, or just type the questions in the chat box. So we will take them one by one. So while you do that, let's turn back to Chanaka. So Chanaka is asking, when do we need sub-research questions? Is it always necessary to formulate them, or is it enough to go directly from research objectives without having sub-research questions? Yeah, sir and madam.
Damayanthi, yeah. Let me a couple of things before you answer. Maybe you can stop the sharing so that we can see each other better. I can't see Kapila.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. Sub-research questions.
What I feel is he's distinguishing between research objectives and sub-research questions. Even when I was reading the question, I felt like sub-research questions are like objectives, but what I think Chanaka means is something else other than objectives.
Okay. Maybe we had to break it down further is what he actually may be asking, hopefully. Or Chanaka, if he's around, you can tell us.
If Chanaka, if you can clarify the question by unmuting yourself, that might be helpful. I have a vague idea what you mean, but I don't know whether we get your question correctly. Shanaka, you want to clarify the question?
Good evening, sir and madam. When I was learning the research methodology, I saw that there are something called sub-research questions in some notes, but I am not sure whether they are mandatory to have, or can we directly go for research objectives after deriving research questions? That's my problem. Do we need to have them or not? That will be enough for that question. Sub-research questions.
I think the idea, just some thoughts. I think the idea is to break the question down into much more smaller levels, so it can be easily solved, or easily you can think of what's really, I mean, you can think of, or you can plan, or make it more researchable, meaning like it's very short. But that might be the idea of sub-research questions. But generally, so if you if you do, let's say, a PhD, maybe the research questions are first based sort of at a higher level to start with, and then when you start researching more, or when you want to go into deep, you might have to break it down into sub questions or sub parts. That might be what you're talking about. So that, yes, it's I think it depends on how deep and detailed you want to go into a research and the question. So you can break it down into sub questions. Yes, that's correct. I mean, I have seen such formulation of, I don't know whether you call it sub questions, but breaking the question into multiple questions. Yeah. Damayanthi, you want to add?
No, I think, so I think it should be the notion of it. So you have an aim and then the path going to the aim. So it could be maybe further broken down, probably. Yeah, that should be the idea. Yes.
I think you answered I mean, when I was reading the question, I got some idea of it. I think your answer also aligned with the idea I got. So what you both mean is like you can have some bridging step between research objectives and research problems if it naturally flows from the research. If it's not naturally flowing, you can just go from the research question to objectives, right? Okay, so then the second question, how can we determine whether the research question we have crafted are good enough? If it's appropriate to use a framework such as SMART, so SMART means the usual, unspecific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. What I would like to know is the approach you personally use, sir and madam. How do you determine whether a research question is good enough? What is a personal trick?
Yeah. I will let the expert to say things first, and then maybe I can share mine. Yeah.
I think, because it says personal, so the answer would be biased. So I think I'm biased towards the novelty. Yeah, and I'm biased towards the novelty, and then I think I said about some characteristics. So the SMART is a good framework, of course. So we could be focused, measurable, relevant, and then like it is specific, and then of course ethical. But I think I'm usually biased towards the novelty and also achievable and relevant. And when it comes to undergraduate thesis, we also look at the depth, like, I mean, because we would like to cover a certain depth, what would like to, the scope that we would cover for them to cover, right, from their thesis, I think. But mainly personally for me, it's the novelty of the work. Or you can say it's the contribution that we make.
Roshan, sir.
So I think maybe I assume this is again Chanak asking, right? So I assume
Chanaka.
Chanak is a young researcher, budding researcher, and I have been doing research for about 20 plus years now. And now I don't really know what I'm looking at, because it's sort of what I mean by that is now it's more of experience, right? So we don't think what we are really looking at, but we know, sort of, right? So how it happened is over a long period of time, looking at different ways of doing it, and also a lot of experience. But I agree with him. For an early researcher, it would be good if you have it's sort of a checklist, right? So that is what he's talking about. So having a checklist, uh, any framework would have, all these frameworks are prepared, proposed by people who thought a lot about it, and therefore they all most of them make sense, and therefore a sensible framework is a good place to do. When my students, so like young researchers, ask this question, yes, I advise them to do the same as well. But how do I do it? To be honest, I don't know now, right? So I haven't thought about it now. So it's just like a more, it's like has become part of the experience.
So let's go to the third question. This is again from Chanaka. What would you suggest for an MPhil or PhD student to do before starting an applied AI research to identify gaps and generate research questions? Is it a scoping review or systematic literature review, or both, one followed by another? So in summary, what would you suggest for an MPhil PhD student to do before starting an applied AI research to identify gaps? Like, do we even need to do either scoping review or a systematic review to start an MPhil or PhD?
So I would say doing the review itself is
Research.
Yes. I don't know whether everyone agrees, but that is how it is, right? So, and yeah, so if you are talking about solving, at least in fields like computer science, we don't, nowadays things are changing because there's a lot of overlapping work happening, multidisciplinary. But generally, few years ago, or even now, in computer science type of research, I'm not sure, because Chanaka mentioned about some area as well, right? Not specifically like applied AI research, right? So, in an area like that, yes. So Damayanthi was talking about a lot of previous review papers, right? So work that are already done. So that could even be a starting point. You don't have to do it on your own unless there's nothing done in the past, in the recent past, that is, right? So therefore, it doesn't have to be always the case you start by doing scoping or systematic literature review or review. But if thing is done, and if you want to contribute so that others can also use and go forward, that's a good start. In fact, nowadays, I'm also encouraging my PhD students or research students to start somewhere. It's the same thing that I told right now, and that is what I'm telling them as well. If there's some work done in the last 3 years, enough, so proper literature, systematic literature review, then you just look at it and start from there. But if it is not done, then yes, you can do one. But in certain fields now, it's becoming, I assume, easier to do systematic things using tools, and therefore it can be done faster. Yeah. So earlier it used to be taking a lot of time.
Damayanthi madam, what's your take on this?
I think from my personal experience, I have found like a comparative study would to be very effective, I don't know. So we are like building on what I said, where, if you can find one or two key studies, download their data sets, actually run them and get some hands on them. I have found them to be very effective with the students who are going to start MPhil or PhDs in that area, because that it really gives you a feel of whether you really want to do that or not to start with. That's one thing. And actually, that's going to be very useful. And also, it's going to give you an idea of what are the relevant papers, the papers that you need to focus on, what could be the relevant data sets, the methods that you need to focus on, what are the evaluation methods, what are the metrics, what are the baselines, and even where you'd be publishing. A lot of ideas you can get. Some I think so. Even yeah. So the one either a comparative study where you take a couple of methods, compare between them, or you focus on one particular study and you work on you get a real hands on it could be effective. I think that's my suggestion.
Wonderful. So then the last question by Chanaka. So I will first read out the question and then I'll try to generalize this. So his question as it is can we trust deep review features like consensus.app? Because I noticed, so Chanaka noticed in the consensus app that it only uses data from certain places like Semantic Scholar, PubMed, and Archive. So I think if we zoom out the question, it is like, can we trust all the deep review features or deep review tools out there? Would it be narrowing the scope?
I think can I answer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said I think this can be a kickstart. I think I was cautious when I was demonstrating that. So it can be a kickstart. So it can give you some ideas what can be potential research questions that you can explore on. So you can go through where there's ideas are coming from and read through. But so it doesn't necessarily say that we can trust them, but I think consensus is fairly well grounded, right? Because it can tell you where these sources are, where it is taking these answers from, right? So it's fairly well grounded because you can check where the answers are coming from. But of course, it's not taking everything. But it's with Google Scholar as well. It's any database it can happen, but you can now take it and refine it. So it can be a good starting point.
I think other than a systematic review, not just a tool, anything might be like a limited scope, right?
Yeah.
I think what Dr. Damayanthi says is very valid because, I mean, what should matter is actually the credibility of the sources it takes, right? I don't think we have tools or even manual methods that can actually probe everything except a systematic review. And I don't know whether we have even a tool that officially advertises itself as a tool that does real-time systematic review. Do we? I don't think so.
No.
Right?
And there's no, I mean, we are anyway not talking about, so that question is not very relevant unless we let consensus to do a systematic literature review, right? So and we sit back and relax, right? So that's not what we are discussing about anyway. So for example, now if somebody is a researcher is doing a systematic literature review, let's say what they will do is they will not just stop with one archive, right? So they'll go through or exhaustively go through all archives, look at the papers. Some archives will have most of the archives will have most of the papers, or similar papers, common papers, and then there are a few which will have additional ones. So we'll be looking at all of them. So these tools are not a replacement for the researcher. It's a supplement, and also at the same time, it's sort of a replacement for the archive, right? So it's now on top of a few archives together, it's doing that. So we had to, so if you're going to do systematic literature review just by using these tools, then you'll have to find these tools that cover all the archives. right? So the
Yeah.
multiple tools covering the archives of like an umbrella, then you'll have to do that. So that exhaustive search, like Kapila was rightly pointing out, we don't right now know tools claim that they do systematic literature review, right? So that's not the focus. So yeah, that's where we are.
And so Hiroshika is asking another question. It relates to explainable AI. So how does the explainability features affect the discovery of any research questions beyond previous research related to our research? So I'll read it again. How does explainability features affect the discovery of any research question beyond previous research related to our research? As one of the research problems, can we take the explainability feature as a research gap or problem? So I don't quite understand the question, honestly. So shall we like ask shall we cross-examine Hiroshika to actually clarify?
Partly, I think we got. I understand second part of the question. I'm not sure. I'm not. Maybe I had to read the first part of it. Damayanthi, do you want to answer it or? So the second part of the question is obvious. So the question is whether the explainability can be can it be a research question in a topic, right? So, uh, uh, so if explainability is something that is useful, generally it is, then yes, it can be a question. But it's sort of strange the way how it is put.
Yeah, that's how I also learned it. I think how I read it is like there's already work being done on a particular domain or a particular topic. Can we add explainable AI on that topic and call it as a research question? Is that valid research question? But I think looking at how the field has evolved, I think I'm a bit skeptical on it because this is how the field has evolved actually. 4-5 years back, explainable AI, explainable machine learning, like you have a machine learning pipeline, yeah, you plug in explainable ML, it was a new thing. But now how it is it's not new anymore. It's very easy to plug in XML into the ML pipeline. So therefore, if you want to add in explainable AI to your existing topic, then you will have to justify. Let's put it that way. You would have to justify comparing it with what have been done so far by comparing it with the related work through a proper literature review, comparing it with the related work through a literature review, differentiating it, what you're suggesting. What is a research question? Why it is a research question? What you're suggesting is a research question.
What's the novelty or something? Like connecting to your previous problem.
Identifying the novelty of the work.
Yeah, all what we discussed about what a research question is, the features and all that, not just adding one more thing. That's the irritating part of that question. Like, but
Hiroshika, did we answer your question? Did we understand our question correctly? If you can give a feedback. Okay, so they say it's yes. Good. So actually, I had 3 questions. 2 of them are actually uncomfortable questions in a sense that if somebody asks me,
don't ask them.
Somebody asks me, I'll be uncomfortable. But today I'm not on the hot seat. You two are. So I'm gonna ask these questions and take a chance anyways. I know Dr. Damayanthi is already upset about it. She knows the type of questions I ask. So that is the thing. So basically, this is actually kind of like expecting a summary. So you actually mentioned, or you actually even demonstrated some techniques AI tools would use to find gaps and transform them into well-formed research questions. So my question is actually, we might be able to actually use these techniques used by AI tools manually by ourselves to actually do this research gap finding and question formulation. So would you please be able to quickly abstract out few of these methods used by the AI tools that even we can use manually. As an example, you gave that finding exclusions in the literature. Likewise.
Right. Manually, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay. You want to go with reverse direction.
exactly.
Okay. Okay. So I want to find. So if I want to find, for example, I want to make my one thing is I have a vague research problem. I want to make it focus, right? Then I want to what I would do manually is identify a couple of variables attached with my problem and then make it focus, right? Identify, for example, machine learning, Alzheimer's disease, identify relevant variables. Okay, I can identify what are the different population, or maybe things like there can be different population, different variables attached to my problem. Then I can make it by identifying and giving maybe values to those variables, I can make it focused. Should I elaborate more? Maybe you can, being someone from Faculty of Science, explain it more?
Yeah, so I actually wanted, I was expecting answers along that direction actually. Yeah,
Yeah, so if I want to make it more focused, I can I try to understand what are the variables in my problem and try to give values to my problem. For example, I say studying about students in Sri Lanka. I say which students? Undergraduate students. Undergraduates, which student? Where? Undergraduate student in University of Peradeniya. Studying what? Studying physics. About like what am I going to like? Likewise, I try to make it more and more and more and focus. So I did, and I stop at one point, make it more focused. The other characteristic is I want to make it novel. To make it novel, only way to make it novel is to understand your literature. So 80% of the problem is the literature review, the related work. So read. And then, okay, as I demonstrated in that matrix, so you do the matrix manually, do the table. Identify the common characteristic, common parameters, and build a table. Build what are the connections between these methods, these papers, and then identify gaps. And then we have to, what is the gap? Then we can identify the novelty to make it novel. And then to make it relevant is, I think it's about, if you to do it relevant, to do it manually would be that one thing to do it manually would be discussion through the peer, that peer discussion, the review, or the even maybe the evaluation, the what we do as, the proposal evaluations, these evaluations that I do, I will take that feedback, all the feedback coming in my evaluations. And yeah, so that would be how I would make this relevant. So focused, novel, relevant, that will be the manual methods that I would do if I'm not to use AI.
Thanks, Shubham. I think I got a very good answer for that question. Sir, what's your take on this one? If you were to think like an AI without AI.
I'll pass. Damayanthi has given a good answer.
Okay, so then this is another thing came to my mind. Okay, so when we talk about, especially in these theory courses about research and everything, we always hear this word hypothesis, right? Null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and this comes in this, scientific method kind of thing. But in today's discussion, our discussion is about, finding research gaps and, transforming them into well-formed research questions. This word, this keyword hypothesis, actually didn't even show up, I guess. Instead, I think the word we used to hear often was research question. So you both are from engineering and I'm from sciences, and I have the exact same experience in our trade also. when we talk about research, we kind of don't use this word hypothesis. We use the same word, research question. So what's up with this word actually? Is it more towards like, humanities and social sciences? So this hypothesis testing approach and research kind of open research question approach, are these like alternative approaches to research? Ragil, sir, what do you think? Because you passed the previous question.
That's you are bringing a guest and you are not letting her to talk, right? So I think it's the way how we started from formulating research and also our focus, right? So even when you asked the previous question, even I asked the previous question the couple of questions ago from Damayanthi, even to answer the question from the audience, Chanaka's question, Damayanthi will be like about how do we determine whether a research question is right, and so on, right? So the things that we focused on is more on solving problem, maybe it's applied, than coming up with sort of, how do I put it, a statement or like a
Competing arguments. So
yeah. So that may be the reason why we are sort of not so focusing on the specific term, but it doesn't mean these are, I don't think they are different approaches per se, right? So we always can formulate a problem, whether it is an applied problem or like a pure problem, I don't know, like words, or a theoretical problem into one or the other. That's my take.
So, Dr. Damayanthi, what's your philosophical perspective on this one? Because I know you are kind of towards philosophy of sciences and engineering and everything as well as the director of engineering education unit.
Yeah, in my defense of for the reason for not using that term,
In our
I
defense.
think, yeah, at least in our side of the bridge in these days, we are looking at problems, I think mostly where we are looking at the problems where we have data and we look at by extracting patterns from the data. We are not looking at, we have a hypothesis and we collect data and see whether hypotheses are true or not. We are not looking at from that perspective. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense because actually
A lot of the studies that we are focusing at the moment is all about we have a lot of data and we extract hypotheses out of it. We don't build hypotheses anymore.
Exactly, yeah. I think hypothesis comes after, like even within like work packages or like objectives, I think it's in the front end, maybe not in the back end anymore. Yeah, I think, yeah. The thing is, the reason I ask this question is this is a question most of the students have. When we talk about theory of research, this comes often, right? Because it's, I think those theorizations were happening in the front of humanities and social sciences. And they could, with this Hegel and Marx and all these ideas, they could like come up with H and H prime and H0 and all these things. But then again, in our trade, I think we all try to solve a problem. And usually it's a burning problem. Problem is well identified. I think both in applied sciences and engineering, what we do is we solve a problem and we solve it over and over again in like better ways. How to solve the same problem in a better manner. I think that is where we are right now. So it's basically, yeah, it's maybe as Ragil sir says, we can combine all these approaches. But I was just asking because like students have this question. Yeah, I think I kind of have an answer for that question as well. I think we have time for maybe one more audience question, and there's this other question that is again from me. So I think when Dr. Damayanthi first started, you actually said And also, I think when we were giving answers to the third question from Chanaka, we emphasized the fact that usually in a research, there's this supervisor and the research group. They will have like some set of questions, so at least some themes, research themes, and you will pick one of those things and then you will refine it, and then you will apply whatever you learn from today's session, like you formulate a good, a good or precise or smart research question out of that. So in my department, things happen a little bit different. So basically, students are supposed to come up with research questions, and as supervisors, we are not supposed to augment them a lot. We can actually play with it and make it doable, but we are not supposed to actually alter the great brand theme or something. So there, what I find is some students, I mean, with their smarts or maybe like in some random sense, come up with research questions which has good research merit. So I'm, touching this base because when somebody asks the question, how do you, Achanaka's question, how do you determine whether research question is good or bad? You said you will check the novelty and the contribution to the field. So that is what we call actually research merit. So I think in most scenario, most cases, the supervisor who's an experienced researcher, they get to pick the topic with a good research merit. But in a very special case, in like my department, where the student picks the topic and the supervisor doesn't have any much leg room to actually, fortify it with more research merit, basically novelty or contribution, to make a research stand out within that little gap. What can we do, especially especially using the research tool? So basically, if you're confined, like something is like given or something, how can you actually make it more novel or contribute more, useful to the community using AI? I don't know if I make myself clear, because this is a very niche problem. This is not how research happens, but unfortunately, I'm in that position.
Damayanthi.
Yeah, I think the question is clear, but I think it's because maybe it's because you are looking at it as an exercise of training for research, not really
Exactly.
you are not expecting it to be outcome to be something novel. Maybe, like as I said,
Yeah.
it can be twofold. What you want is the student to go through a training of research, not really,
Yeah, the
have
system
something
expects
novel
something like
contribution
that.
to the field. So then you take it like a training to the student. You are supervising, and what you want to give is a training to the student, and you take it in that spirit and you give that training to the student.
Yeah, but then I think you understood I don't know, the scenario or the problem correctly. It is like we consider it more to be a training than like a publishable or something. But then students are kind of frustrated at points where they really want to like, publish and like apply for higher studies and everything. And I persistently get this query from students like, how can I make it publishable? That is what they mean. What they mean actually is like how to improve the research merit within those bounds, make it more novel, make it more contributory to the system. So like, can we use like AI tools or something to, or maybe like refine it, find new cross dimensions or something? So it's like more than gap identification, right? What can I do more with a given problem kind of a thing?
So maybe the problem what's the real problem? Is it
Because
that you have?
the real problem is, I think if I put it in one sentence, not having enough research merit or basically novelty or contribution to the field.
It's not so the question. Yeah, that I understood.
Yeah.
The question is why you are allowing it.
I think it's what Dr. Damayanthi found out, because The system expects it to be, system is satisfied. The system itself is satisfied if it's only a training for research, but the student is not satisfied.
So, I mean, does it also mean you can't get trained by doing publishable research?
Not really. I mean, definitely the training. So if you think about, general research, you actually kind of focused in this talk, they have both training aspect and the research merit, right? So in the case I bring up there, the thing is, the training is more focused and merit is not highlighted much. But while they are in the project, the student realizes, if I had more research merit to my research problem, I would have gained more from this 6 or 8 credits.
Yeah, it's more, then it's more like you are learning the theory or you are applying it, right? I mean, is it more like you are learning how to do it? So it's more of a research methodology exercise.
Kind of, yes.
Maybe it's too narrow to put it that way, but it sounds like that, right? So
it sounds like that, yeah, definitely.
So my question was whether it is, I mean, because the question you asked is whether AI tools can be used to do it better.
Yeah.
But why I'm asking the question I'm asking is, you are doing it only because you are satisfied, you meaning the system you are in is satisfied with the current present status quo, or is it because we can't do much more because we don't have people to refine it, we don't have the support system to improve it, so there's a lot more needed to make it better, right? Like
Definitely, sir.
it better, make it more publishable, or that sort of better, right? I'm not saying this is not good. So if that is the case, then like Damayanthi was actually explaining, right? So we can use these tools to complement what the few people who are out there, right?
Exactly.
So,
I think you understood the problem clearly. Basically, at that stage, a student wouldn't even have a supervisor. They will submit a proposal without a supervisor. In that kind of a state, basically, I should not put it that way because it's kind of unethical. But I think, like, how can you replace or supplement the supervisor's role?
We don't have to replace, but we can, maybe how we can pitch it is that, okay, now you have a few people, very few people, and they are used in certain things in that process. So is it possible for us to relook at where tools can be used and where people can be used, so that the process or the current status could be improved so that the students are happier and there's better outcome? Like, yeah, so nowadays, particularly in places like where Damayanthi and I are, we are trying to do the complete opposite, right? So yes, we think we completely agree, like, yeah, so training is very important and we are giving a lot of importance to the training. We are also, even Damayanthi mentioned from the very beginning, right? So we have this notion that we had to fail and learn, do mistakes and learn. All that is there, but still we give that opportunity where they can explore and refine and improve and make it maybe publishable and so on. So that's also something that we are thinking of. And if the limitation, the problem that you all have is the people, we can convince or relook at the whole process and see where we can organize the responsibilities.
So you would still advocate to incorporate more people than AI? Right.
No, AI can be used but I'm not talking about including I think more people obviously is useful, but what I'm thinking is, can the people be used at the right place so that with the tool we can do better?
Okay. So optimize the roles of the people we already have. I
So if
see.
the problem right now is how people are busy marking something or doing the training, can part of the training be taken off and given to AI so that the training, I hope you know what I mean by the training process of this whole research, right? So can part of it taken off and given to AI so that students can use AI to do those, whatever possible, and then that time can supervisors help use again AI to make it refined. Spend that time.
Or like for writing tasks and all, offload it to like AI or something, and spend more time refining the real science with the supervisor or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it was a tricky question. I mean, it was a yeah, I know it was a very uncomfortable question, but it's something me and my students have. So yeah, in the interest of time, it's actually 10 o'clock now. We talked productively for 2 hours, and we answered some very hard questions. So basically, I think it's time to wind up. So before we wind up, Damayanthi madam, any final thoughts?
No, I think I had a greater time that I anticipated, and I stayed awake also. So I'm very happy. Thank you so much.
I'm happy that you are happy. It's and madam, thank you very much for actually the deep contributions today and also the extended demonstrations as well. And Roshan sir, any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Damayanthi, and it was interesting and sort of deep discussion, and the question that Kapil asked also took us to full deep dive. And so today we have seen how we can formulate research questions, not just formulate research questions, but also solve other people's questions. So with that, yeah, so we can consider it a close. And I just wanted to take a second to tell you all that the next topic we are going to discuss, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, is on research methods, right? So how you design research methods, and generally how you design it, and when it comes to AI, how we can make it better. I think there's again a lot that we can do with AI in research methods formulation and also setting up experiments and whatnot. So we are going into that phase now. Now that we have done a lot of discussion on how to formulate questions, how to set things up, now we have to move on to do